Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. We have kind of a unique episode this week. So, as you may or may not know, we are smack dab in the middle of our 3-day training that we do once. We do this literally once a year. So, one time a year, it's called Master Your Profitable Messaging. In this process, we have a Facebook group. And we also, in that Facebook group, do some other trainings and stuff that I don't normally talk about. And we're going to bring you one of those lives here today, right now. So hopefully you've been registered for the launch, the training, the workshop. Again, our program is opening up, but more importantly, this training that is absolutely for free only comes around once a year. You can get it at brandonlucero.com/MYPM for Master Your Profitable Messaging. Now, this episode is one of the live streams that we did inside the Facebook group. And I thought it was really, really good. Like I kind of surprised myself. Maybe you have had this experience when you're like doing content or a podcast episode or live and you're like, damn, I'm in a flow right now. That's what this episode was. It was me in a flow, and it was so powerful that I wanted to just bring it to you. So whether or not you're in the Facebook group, I wanted to make sure that you heard it. So if you hear things like Frozen, the movie Frozen in the background, that's because my I almost said my wife, my daughter was homesick, listening to Frozen in the background, watching the movie Frozen. And you'll also just hear me interacting with the guest, or not the guest, the people in the Facebook groups. You might hear me call them out by name. You might hear me answering questions and things like that. So when we roll this episode, that's the reason why it is literally a live that we had only for the people in the Facebook group. Now, again, this 3-day training, we've already done day 1. We may have done day 2, depending on when this comes out, or day 2 is going to happen tomorrow. So if you want to catch all of the replays and stuff, you literally just have like a few days or a week to go through it. brandonlucero.com/MYPM. And what I want to do now is let's just play that live stream for you. And we're going to cover the 5 messaging mistakes that are causing problems for people inside of their content, their webinars, their launches, their sales, their funnels, all the messaging, every piece of communication that you have. These are the top 5 reasons why things aren't working. And again, the reason why I wanted to bring this to you is because it is extremely valuable to make people aware of mistakes they're making that are causing problems, so they can stop making those mistakes. Sometimes that's all they need in order to get the results. Sometimes they don't even have to do something new. Okay, so here we go. Let's play it. And I'll see you guys all inside the Facebook group when you opt in and join. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the 5 mistakes that people make when it comes to messaging. By the way, the big event, our 3-day training, starts February 18th, 20th, and 22nd. So for those of you like Layla who have been here on all the lives, Respect CC has been here on the lives, been going through the challenge. You guys are going to get so much more out of those 3 days than people who just show up on those days. So I'm glad you're here. The 3 days are going to be a lot of fun. They're going to blow your mind. We're going to dive deeper into a lot of the different aspects you need within messaging. Like right now, we're talking mostly about like list method or problems and mistakes, but there's so much more to it. There's so much more, like how do we build connection? How do we create demand? How do we teach in a way that gets people to go like, oh my God, I need this. There's so much more to it. And obviously we have a whole program that like walks you through everything, gives you all the frameworks you need, all the exercises. We have a workbook. Check this out. Let me see. Hopefully I have it here. Hold on. Let's see. Maybe I don't. Shoot. Yes, I do. Right here. Right underneath my Nolan Ryan signed baseball card. My wife got me that for Christmas. This is our workbook for our program. So like it walks you through everything, has all the exercises you need to do, all the different examples. We have all the like different methodologies that we use when it comes to messaging. So we'll give you guys more information on that at the end of the month. But the reason why I show you that is just to let you know there's different layers when it comes to messaging. And by being here, by being involved in the group, you guys are just going to get so much more out of the 3-day training. And here's the reason why. How many times have you guys like reread a book or rewatch the video or listen to a podcast multiple times. And then every time you listen to it, you learn more. You have a different experience with it. You have more awareness. So you hear it differently, see it differently. You're not hearing it for the first time. So when you go through it multiple times, you have such a different experience. And that's what's going to happen for all of you that are showing up inside this group over the next couple of weeks before we're in that 3-day training. You're going to have just a different experience and awareness level than a lot of the people who are just showing up for the first time. Either way, it's going to blow your mind. But the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because I'm actually going to add this as one of the mistakes. So I'm going to get into the first mistake here, and then we're going to, I'm going to write it down. So give me 1 second. Okay. We'll get into the rest of them. So, okay. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they think that their messaging has to be new, mind-blowing, something their audience has never heard. And so that way you feel overwhelmed with content because you're like, I always got to create something new. What else do I talk about? I've already talked about stuff. But really good messaging actually repeats itself. You should be feeling like I'm just really repeating myself. And we don't want to come up with new stuff all the time because we want depth in our content. And what starts to happen is when you start to repeat content or concepts or metaphors or teachings, your audience starts to experience them differently every single time they hear it. And even today, I want you guys to recognize that when I go through some of these mistakes, you're probably going to hear me say a metaphor that I've used before or a teaching that I said in one of the past lives. And what I want you to recognize is that you don't feel like, oh my gosh, he's just repeating himself. You're like, yeah, that's true. Or, oh, I'm hearing that differently. Or I see that differently. And the reason why we want to repeat it is because we're going to be able to give our audience different lessons with the same teachings, number one. Number two, we start to form what I call core messaging, which is like, these are the core concepts of my brand. These are the core teachings, the core concepts, the core metaphors, the core stories, all that sort of stuff. But it also, when you start to hear your audience repeat your messaging back to you, that's when you know it's really working. So I have people all the time that say, Brandon, that like doctor metaphor just makes so much sense. Or I really love the list method or thought reversals, or when you use that Gary Vaynerchuk like example that really made sense to me, and they're repeating and regurgitating back the stuff that I'm saying, that's when I know my stuff's landing. And when it's landing, you want to continue to use it. And obviously if you show up every day and just teach the same video, like people will say like, okay, I'm not going to keep showing up. They just keep teaching me the one same thing. But for us, like I'm using a lot of our concepts, messaging concepts over and over again in different videos, in different topics. We actually will repeat our content. So sometimes we rebroadcast podcast episodes that did really well 6 months ago, or we'll repost an image on Instagram that did really good 6 months ago. We'll repost it. So you guys want to keep your messaging repeating, okay? Or just feel like, don't feel, one of the biggest mistakes is feeling like you just constantly have to come up with new stuff all the time. You don't. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to dive into the rest of these 5 mistakes. And before we do that, I wanted to let you guys know for the launch or for the training on March 18th, 20th, and 22nd, there is a free version and there's a VIP version. The VIP version, you don't have to worry about taking notes. I'm just going to give you our notes on it that we call it the director's notes of the training. I'm going to write those up for you. So you'll have everything you need, all the exercises, frameworks, content, all that stuff. Number 2, we're going to invite you to private Q&A sessions that we're going to be doing in between the lives. Only VIPs will be invited to those. Yes, we'll do Q&A after the free sessions, but we're going to do like an upvote system where only like the top 5 questions will get answered, but we'll do Q&As after that. And then not only that, we're giving you a course that I would normally charge $300 to $500 for on how to design a freebie. Not only how to design it, but how to write the messaging and content in it. So you're adding value, you're creating demand, and you're increasing the engagement and the likelihood that they will take whatever call to action you give them at the end. So whether that's book a call, make a sale, we're going to show you how to break all of that down. It's $47. Like it's just $47. Shouldn't break the bank, hopefully. And it's the links underneath here for anyone that wants to join that VIP session. Okay. With that being said, let's dive in. So we covered one mistake. I'm going to count that as the intro mistake. We're not going to count it as one of the 5, but The first mistake that people make when it comes to messaging that you need to avoid, and this is one I've talked about in the past, is your awareness versus the audience's awareness. Okay. So what happens with most people when their messaging is off, one of the number one mistakes, or one of the top 3 mistakes, is that you're speaking from your perspective. You're speaking from stuff that you know. You're speaking from stuff that you're aware of. You're not speaking about stuff or speaking about things in a way the audience is aware of. So to give you, and the number one way people mess this up is they speak like you're a coach almost, right? Like you speak as the coach saying, here's what the real problem actually is. And the danger in doing that, like, here's what's really going on. Let me tell you the truth about what this is. And let me tell you the truth about why your problem is happening. All you're doing is you're speaking outside the awareness of your audience. They are not aware that is the problem. They are not aware that that is what's really going on. They are not aware of what the root cause is, because if they were, then they wouldn't have the problem anymore, right? So what happens is when you speak from that place, you aren't relevant to them in their situation. The best messaging in the world has huge, high amounts of relevancy to the person they're trying to attract. Meaning the person hears you, reads, talks, meaning you as the coach or the content creator, and the person automatically goes, that's me, they're talking about me, or that's what I want, or that's what my desires, that's what my thoughts are, that's what my emotions are, that's what my unwanted experience is. That's it. They're talking about me. So high amounts of relevancy. Okay. So I want to do a quick example real quick. If anyone has a problem, you can put it in the chat and we'll see where the awareness is coming from. Or if you have a problem that the audience is having, but they don't know, I can show you where to start and how to bridge it. So what we have a concept that we call bridging, which is, because everyone goes like, well, Brandon, don't I have to get them to realize what the actual issue is? And kind of, yeah, kind of no. But you can by bridging. So if anyone wants to put a problem in there, I'll show you how to build a bridge real quick. This is something we teach our students as well. So let me actually just build a bridge for you guys, because I don't see anything in the chat. So I work with parenting coaches. Like, parenting coaches is one of the niches that we work with, right? Well, a lot of parents just want their kids to listen, or they don't want to yell at their kids. They don't want to have to continue to yell at their kids. They want more connection with their kids, right? Okay, I see a couple of problems come in. We'll go back to that here in a second. So what most parents don't realize is that when you yell at your kids, it's because your kids trigger you. There's some sort of trigger. And I'm just going to give you guys an example of my own personal life. Our kids right now are going through a phase where they just do not listen the first time, especially our 4-year-old, right? And when they don't listen the first time, I can feel the trigger happening inside of me. I'm like, those MFers, oh my God, you need to listen to me now, right? I can feel that bubbling up, and I've done the work to not let it come out. But it was very interesting because I noticed that automatic trigger, right? And I actually switched my expectation. I just went to the expectation of, it's just going to take me 5 times to tell my kids. So like, when it doesn't happen the first time, I'm not triggered anymore. But the point is, there's a trigger, right? Now, all of our triggers are actually results of past traumas that we've gone through. Okay. So that's the basis I want to give you guys. So what a parenting coach could do is just run an ad that says like, hey parents, the reason why you yell at your kids is because you haven't healed your past traumas yet. So why don't you come into my program and I'm going to help you feel your past trauma so you don't yell at your kids. Well, the parents aren't sitting there going, I want to heal my past traumas. They're going there saying, I just don't want to yell at my kids. So when I say come in and heal your past traumas, they're like, this isn't relevant to me. So why would I come in? Right. So it's a mismatch. It doesn't align. You're speaking from your awareness, not theirs. So here's how you would build a gap. So if they came on the webinar or something like that, say, hey parents, are you so sick and tired of having to yell at your kids in order to get them to listen? Look, I totally get it. And I understand. Okay. I totally understand. I was there too. Now, what I want you to realize first and foremost is that when you yell at your kids, are you consciously thinking about it like, oh man, I just need to yell at my kids? Or is it more of an automatic trigger reaction? And parents will be like, it's more of an automatic trigger reaction. You go, exactly. Now, have you guys ever asked yourself why you're having that automatic reaction? Have you ever asked, why is this automatic? And then when you look at other parents, go, why don't they have that automatic reaction? And say, guys, today I'm going to show you how to end that automatic reaction, because if you can end that automatic reaction, you can stop yelling at your kids. You can get them to, you can be more grounded. You can have better conversations with them. You can see where they're at. So what we're going to talk about is how to get rid of those automatic reactions. Now, what most people don't realize is a lot of these triggers and things actually come from our past traumas. They come from our past experiences. Maybe you grew up in a household where you weren't listened to, and now it's an automatic trigger because your kids aren't listening to you. Maybe you had a parent who yelled at you and now it's a trigger, and blah, 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 blah. But do you guys see how I went from here's what you're experiencing, which is yelling at your kids. Did you realize there's an automatic thing? Do you know where your automatic things come from? No? Okay, great. Now what we're going to do is talk about, where does the automatic things come from? It comes from past traumas. That's what I call building a bridge. Now I want to check in with you guys. You guys see how that happened? Do you guys see how I started from their awareness and I moved to my awareness? I moved to the solution. I built a bridge. And the number one reason when your messaging's not working is because you're so consumed in your perspective over here, the audience isn't there yet. So when you create content, how-to videos, all of this stuff in your communication and your messaging, they're over here going like, I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. So that's why you have the really great information, but it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything because it's not relevant to the audience. Okay. Now, the other reason why this is really important is because shifting perspective is one of the biggest things that you can do for people to create really powerful content. Best-selling books, some of the best content creators all shift perspective. They get you to see something you haven't seen before. So when I tell you something like how-to content is one of the worst types of content that you can create if you want to build a brand online. And I said, but if we look at Gary Vaynerchuk, Mel Robbins, Tony Robbins, like they'll have amazing audiences, amazing engagement. They're not sitting there doing tutorials. When I say that to people, most people go like, oh my God, they're not. It's a big realization. I shifted their perspective. They start to think, oh, maybe how-to content isn't, and tutorials aren't the best way to do it. Shift their perspective. But you can't shift anyone's perspective. By the way, when you shift people's perspective, that's when you start getting comments like, you blew my mind. I've never realized that before. Things like that. But you can't shift anyone's perspective unless you know where the audience is at. The reason why that one works for me is because I know the audience thinks, most audience thinks, I need more information. I need to give my best away for free. I need more how-to. I need more tutorials. I know that that's where their awareness is. So when I go against the awareness and give proof, like the Gary Vaynerchuks and the Tony Robbins and the Mel Robbins and the Brene Brown, Simon Sinek, now the mind goes, oh my God, that makes sense. I didn't realize that before. But you can't shift perspective unless you know where your audience is at. So that's number one, is speak from your audience's awareness, not yours. Number two is going to be, and this goes hand in hand because the next question I know you're probably having is like, well, Brandon, how do I get into their awareness? Great question. That mistake number two is that you're not testing enough. Everyone looks at content and messaging as like, I need to get it perfect and then I will release it. It's more of, I'm going to release it so I can get it perfect. It's not, I'm going to get this perfect and then release it. It's, I'm going to release it so I can get it perfect. You have to be able to get out of perfectionism. You have to test, you have to push, you have to go faster. Like, how many of you guys have taken the list method or the persuasive tutorial and done at least 5 videos? Probably no one. Because you're going through the framework, and I get it. It's brand new. You want to get it right. You want to do this. And no, move quickly on this stuff. The faster you do it, the faster you learn, test a different problem, take one of the problems, turn into content. You have to move quickly. Now, this doesn't mean rush through the exercises. Like, take your time with the exercises, really sit with it, really think about it. But once it's done, post the damn thing. Let's see how it does. And so for even for some of you who are like in the Facebook group saying, hey, what do you guys think of this? It's like, have you posted it yet? What was the data? Tell us. Like, I, as a coach, as a person helping you, as a mentor, when I know the data on it, like 2 likes, no likes, 0 likes, 100 likes, this, that, this watch time. And then you say, here's what it is. I have the data and I have the script. I can give a much better answer because honestly, I won't know how anything performs until it's actually posted. So you have to understand this is a trial and an error process. Messaging is a trial and error process. You're always going to be learning. It's our program is one of the programs where people go through once a year. They go through once a year. And when you buy it, you're a member for life. So they just continue to go through because they don't have to pay us anything. They just pay the initial fee and they get to go through it. But they go through it over and over and over again because now you have a year of data and you go through it and you have a different perspective. You have different eyeballs on it. You have different awareness. You have different knowledge now. And so they'll continue to go through it because your messaging is also going to be evolving. Things will work and then all of a sudden not work and stuff like that. So for me, my messaging is always evolving, always getting better. I'm always learning. I'm looking at the data. I'm adjusting. I'm trying stories. I'm trying different metaphors. I'm trying this. I'm trying different frameworks. I'm always trying and testing and tweaking. And that's what messaging is. And it usually, just so you guys know, messaging is not going to be dialed in on your very first try. Okay. So it's not going to be dialed in on your very first try. Almost always, it will never be that way. And so you have to understand that you're learning from testing and tweaking and putting things out there and seeing what works and what doesn't. So pay attention to data, pay attention to the responses you're getting, pay attention to all of that stuff. So that's mistake number 2. And that leads me into the next mistake. Number 3, let me just move these ones around real quick. Number 3 is that people think following a framework and a strategy is how we fix our messaging. And it's not. Now I will say, yes, we need strategies. Yes, we need frameworks. I have frameworks. Our whole program has frameworks all over the place, but there's another layer underneath it that makes the frameworks work. And here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. How many of you guys have taken the DM list method challenge or the persuasive tutorial and didn't hit the results that you wanted yet, or maybe didn't get any results? Yet you still followed the framework to a T. And that's what I'm talking about, is we can't get tricked into thinking that in order to fix our messaging, we have to follow a framework. Because if I have really bad messaging and I had really bad communication and I just put it into a framework and that communication isn't relevant to my audience, I'm speaking from my awareness, even though I'm speaking truth or really good stuff, but it's my awareness and it goes into a framework, guess what? The framework isn't going to work. So yes, we need frameworks, but it's just the first layer of actually fixing our communication. We have to get to the core of our communication, of our messaging, fix that. That's why the way our program works is you actually go through exercises first. There's a whole workbook. You go through learning the concept, pulling out the information you need, working that information, taking the mistakes out of that information, then plugging that information into a framework, and voila, now we have stuff that works. Okay. So you have to understand, yes, we need the frameworks, but if we think all we need is a framework and then our messaging is fixed, then we're missing the bigger picture. So we have to start understanding the core of why does the messaging work? And it goes back to problem number 1. You first have to get in the awareness of your audience, figure out how to communicate to their awareness, what their problems are, what their mistakes are, what are their desires, what do they want, and kind of separate, here's what I know, here's what I teach, here's my solution, kind of get out of that a little bit. It does have its place, but we have to be careful, be careful with it. So those are the 3 mistakes. Let's move to mistake number 4, which is people just teach too much. And I know I've talked about this before, but the danger of teaching too much is you trick people into thinking they have everything they need when they don't, or you've given them enough to work on where they're like, I'm just going to work on this because this is already a lot and I don't even need the program. I don't need to work with them. I just need to master this first. So that's the danger of giving out too much information. Or you risk overwhelming them, and an overwhelmed person never buys. So like even with you guys, I'm just being very careful not to like over teach or over deliver information. I'm just more of like breaking down concepts really is kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm not really trying to teach you how to do anything. We did a little bit inside the DM challenge, but I'm trying to keep it super simple, bite-sized chunks. So you have to understand, like when we look at the Tony Robbins and Brene Browns and all those people, they're not just doing tutorials all the time. We never see encyclopedias at the top of the best-selling charts. They're always books that either shift people's perspective, understand where people's awareness is, reveal things slowly over time. So I know right off the bat when you have a webinar or something like that and it's not converting, chances are you're over teaching. You're just delivering way too much information and it's not helping with the sales. So there's so many different elements we need to incorporate. So we need connection, we need shifting perspective, we need to build trust, we need all of that stuff. So we have and persuasive tutorial, which we gave you guys last week, which you can still get by DMing us on Instagram. That persuasive tutorial will start to help you break down how to teach in a more effective way, how to teach, be engaging, pull people in, not overwhelm them, all of those things. Okay. And the last and final mistake, and this one is actually one of my favorites, is that people are just afraid to say what they want to say. They're afraid of the haters. They're afraid of judgment. They're afraid of it not working. They're afraid of people saying they're going to be stupid or whatever it may be. The most powerful people that come into our program, the ones that get the best results, are the ones who aren't afraid to speak from their heart. They aren't afraid to say what they want to say. Now, what this means is there's a couple ways to do this. We do this because we want to build connection, right? We do this because we have a belief, we have values, we have things that we want to stand up for. For me, I go against how-to content because I genuinely think that if you do how-to content and that's the only thing you do in your brand, you're going to be having a really hard time building a business online. I just believe that to my core. Yes, there are some people that can do that and succeed with it, but 95% of us, it just will not work. And as we get more and more people coming into the space, I think it's going to work less and less. So for me, I like to say that because it's polarizing. Number one, it's different. It allows me to stand out. Number two, it's my truth. It's what I actually believe. And it's not like a pet peeve. This is not me wanting to be right? This is me saying, I genuinely think this is an actual real big effing problem in the space. I actually think that this doesn't work. And I think a lot of people think that it does, and it's causing them an issue. Now, here's the difference. You don't want to try to just go after pet peeves and things like that. It doesn't really work as much. And here's what I mean. Let's say I just hated webinars and I just went out there and said, webinars are one of the worst things you could do. They totally sucked, blah, 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 blah. They're creating problems for people. But yes, my kids are watching Frozen. You guys can hear that. I said it at the beginning of the call, but one of my daughters is homesick and my wife had a bunch of stuff to do today. And I was like, just leave her, I'll throw a movie on. So she's, if you can hear it, she's out there watching Frozen. That's my train of thought. Okay. So let's say I just hated webinars. I just didn't like them for whatever reason. And I'm like, video series or challenges are so much better, blah, 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 blah. Well, webinars actually work, and they work for a lot of people. It's not like webinars are creating problems for people. So I don't want to take a stand against that just because I don't like it, because you could be misleading people away from something that is actually working. So when it comes to saying what you want to say and standing up for what you want to say, it's not about being right. It's about having a deeper purpose. It's about having connection. It's about identifying what's actually going on inside the space that doesn't really work anymore, that people just haven't realized, and taking a stand against that. It's standing up for the change that you want to create in the world. It's stand out because you stand for something. And that's what I like to do with our messaging. So our messaging will include connection. It'll include, I'm going to connect with what I believe, like Caitlin Batcher was a client for a lot of years. And one of the best pieces of content that we did with her, that it was titled, oh gosh, what was it titled? It was like, something like entrepreneurship should be taught to children. That was a belief that she had. And she's like, I believe this is true. I believe that we should be teaching kids entrepreneurship, even if they don't want to be entrepreneurs, but at least to open them up to this whole world. And as mothers, as women, this is what we should be doing. And it blew up. It did so well because that was her belief, but she knew that belief would connect with other entrepreneurs who would eventually buy her product. She sold an evergreen product. How did you do evergreen? So that video didn't really have anything to do with what she was selling, but had everything to do with connecting with who was going to buy that product, who she wanted to attract, and allowed her to speak from her heart and a message that she wanted to broadcast to the world. And I think, and you need that inside of your brand. You need that inside of your messaging. Let's look at Red Bull. When you guys go to Instagram or Red Bull's Instagram, Do you see any content of their product? Do you see the Red Bull can, drink, pouring it into a nice cold glass? No. What do you see? You see extreme sports, jumps, motorcycles, skydiving, cliff diving, mountain bikes. Why? Because their brand stands for extreme sports, living on the edge. That's their heart. That's their message. That's their values. Those are their values. They're creating content from beliefs, from values of who they want to attract. Your brand needs it. Now, we're not selling physical products here. We're selling courses and services and that thing. So we still need other forms of content. We still do need to talk about a product from time to time. You guys have heard me mention NGM. You saw me talk about our workbook that we mail out to every single student, right? You've heard me talk about that stuff. So I incorporate it. But I still talk a lot about my values, my beliefs. I use a lot of my family in our stories and content and a lot of that stuff. I talk about entrepreneurship and kids and fatherhood. Those are my values. Those are my beliefs. I go against the grain on how to content. That's what my brand stands for. Okay. So mistake number 5 is sometimes people are just afraid to say what they want to say or to be polarizing or to take a stand or whatever. And again, there's an art form to it. We can go too aggressive with it. But when we find that balance, it works wonders within our brand. So I'm going to go to Q&A. Those are the questions, or those are the mistakes. Let me just repeat them one more time. I'm going to go through the chat real quick and see if there's any areas to help. So number 1, people don't repeat their messaging enough, meaning that they try to come up with something new every single time, every single day. What's deep? How do I go deeper with this? We don't need to do that. So that's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 is you speak from your awareness instead of your audience's awareness. Mistake number 2 is you're not testing or taking action fast enough to be able to learn. You think you're literally living from the concept of once it's perfect, then I'll post, instead of I'll post so I can get it perfect. That's the process. Post so you can get it perfect. Number 3, you think just following a framework or a strategy is going to fix your messaging, and it won't. If you still have bad communication, even though you put it in a great communication structure or framework, it still won't land. So for those of you doing the list method post and it's not really landing yet, the framework works as long as the communication is relevant to the audience. As long as you're hitting the right problems and saying it in the right way, the framework will blow up for you. I promise you that. We've had over 2,000 students. We've tested this in and out. So you have to understand that we need a strategy, we need a framework, we need the framework to follow to have really good communication. But if the words and the things that we're choosing to put into that framework aren't landing, then the framework is going to fall apart. So the frameworks are good, but that's not what drives the framework. It's like saying I have a really good car. My car's a Ferrari, like I have this, or whatever it is. Ferrari's my dream car. So that's what popped in my head. And then being like, okay, cool. I got the Ferrari. I'm going to go really, really fast now. And then it's like, there's no gas in it. And you're like, what the hell's going on? I got the fast car. It's not going anywhere. It's like, yeah, because that's not what drives the car. It's not what pushes the car. It's not what you need, that combustion. You need the gasoline, you need, right? And that's what the words are. So frameworks by themselves aren't going to fix your messaging. Number 4 mistake is that you're teaching too much. And the 5th mistake is that you're just sometimes afraid to say what you want to say and not knowing how to say it. So real, raw, relevant. I love that. Reese. Okay. So let's go through some of these problems here. By the way, for those of you who love this, you want to be able to ask more questions, especially as we get into the trainings on March 18th, 20th, and 22nd. We do have the VIP option available for you. We're going to have private, intimate Q&A sessions with all the registrants, all the VIP people. So yes, we have free training. It's a free version. The 18th, 20th, and 20th are free. In between those days, we will have VIP sessions where we're going to be doing some more deeper Q&A, going deeper on certain things. It's $47. It's not too much money. And not only that, but we're going to include a mini course on how to create really powerful lead magnets, not even how to create them, like put them out there. It's like how to do the messaging and the teaching inside of it. We have a whole process for you to follow so that you pull in people, you attract the right people, you create demand while you're teaching. Literally, we only give this to our top mentorship people when they join our top tier program. We pulled this straight from that and we just given it to you for free in this offer. I mean, it's $47 for the offer, but like this was an added on bonus that we did. And then we're giving you director's notes for all 3 days. So you don't have to worry about taking notes. I'm going to outline every single day, give you every framework, all the notes delivered to you. It's for $47. Again, it's not one of these things where I'm not getting rich off this. In fact, I'm probably losing money on it. Like when you look at how much we're spending on ads to get you guys here and the VIP sales, we're losing money. So it's more for those of you who just like, I'm committed to this and I just want a bigger experience. You have it. You don't need it. Not trying to hard sell it or whatever, but just make sure you guys know about it. Okay. So let's go through some of these problems here. So Cassandra is saying I offer pregnancy support, labor courses and programs. Okay, cool. So Cassandra, when I asked the question, I was asking for a problem. You're just telling me what you do. So be careful with that because it doesn't matter what you do. I want to know what problems you solve. So it's a little bit of a perspective shift. Devin saying, what about struggling with health condition and my content is showing them what's really causing it? How can I communicate that? I would study the holistic psychologist content because that's kind of what she does. It's like people have these problems. They're more mental or emotional problems because she's a therapist, but then she moves to, let me just give you an example. This is what the list method does, Devin. So it's like, one of these things, it's like, here's the health problem. Do you feel like you need to take a nap to get through the day? And you can't have a single day without taking a nap, right? That's the health problem. Then we're going to go to the cause. If so, I'm willing to bet you're eating a lot of things with gluten in it, breads, this, that, da. In fact, I'm willing to bet at least one or more of your meals has some sort of gluten-based product in it. Now, what starts to happen is you have the problem, you have the thing that they're doing that's causing it, and they go, oh my God, that's me. So now you're opening their awareness to the gluten is causing me to do this. And then you can even reveal if this is you may have an autoimmune disease. And this is what we help people do. If you want more information and to see if this is really you and to go further with this, send us a DM, send us a message, send us whatever. So again, it's based off of relevancy. It starts with the problem. Here's the very specific problem you have. You have to take a nap during the day to get through the day. You can't have a single day without taking a nap. You're eating gluten-based products. And then you're like, oh, you might have autoimmune. Okay. All right. Lynn says, my people have a belief they don't deserve to step into purposeful, meaningful work. Okay, great. So if they are aware of that, awesome. If they're not aware of that, then you don't want to communicate that way. And my feeling on it is that they aren't aware of that yet. I don't think they're walking around saying, I just don't deserve to do purposeful, meaningful work. What they're probably doing is walking around saying things like, who wants to listen to me? I have nothing of value to add to the world. So now you're going to create content of, are you a person who constantly doesn't start the business you want to because you think you don't have anything valuable to add to the world, right? So you as a coach, you're looking at it saying, oh, they just don't want to step into purposeful, meaningful content. But if that's not what's going through their head, if that's not what their experience is, if that's not what they're saying, that will not work. So you guys have to be very careful to stick within your awareness. Okay. All right. Let's go through a couple more. And I'll tell you guys that this is one of the hardest things in communication is literally looking at someone else's perspective and truly listening. Like people are like, well, how do I get into their perspective? Listen to them. Trust me, I've been with my wife since I was we were 15 and 16 years old. I just turned 40 last year. One of the hardest things that I've ever had to learn in being married and being in a relationship that long is good communication. And I'm still learning. Trust me, it's like a never ending journey. But the number one thing that I've learned in our communication is being able to put my own wants, desires, perspectives to the sides and truly listen without judgment, without my own triggers being flaring up, without my own desire to get my word in. truly listening to what she's saying, how she's feeling, what she's going through, all of that stuff, and truly getting to sit and understand her perspective, making her feel heard, validated, without me putting in my word, and then you truly get to learn what's going through their head, what they're experiencing, what they want, what their desires, how they're feeling, right? We need to do the same thing with our audience. Truly look at, what are they doing? What are they saying? What are they feeling? What are they clicking on? What are they watching? How many times are they doing it? And what starts to happen as you do this more and more and more, you start to find these commonalities that bubble up to the surface. So for me, there's a lot of things that probably are going through your head, my audience's head. But what I started to realize is like, okay, this whole thing about how-to content, that always bubbles up to the top. That's a pattern. That's something that like 70% of my audience is always talking about or is relevant. This idea of, another problem is people feel like their audience only understands how good they are after they work with them, not before. They can't communicate it before. I'm like, that's another, when I talk to people and truly try to like understand what they're going through, that was another pattern that bubbled up to this top. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's take that and let's try that one. Right. So you have to really get into the perspective of your audience if you want great messaging. Okay. So Devin's saying, oh, I see. It's about asking questions about what they're aware of the problem, create the bridge. So you say, do you wonder why your doctor says your blood work is normal, even though you know you're struggling with health? Bam. That's perfect. Yes. Love that. Do you constantly ask, what can I do for, and then whatever symptom? Yeah. Like things like that I think are good, but they don't have to happen in the form of questions. So it could be a statement too. Like, for the last 6 months, have you been dealing with a health issue and your doctor's totally confused because they keep telling you your blood work is normal? And no matter how many doctors you go to, you keep hearing your blood work is normal. If so, after working with 500 people going through this exact issue, we've boiled it down to 3 reasons why this is happening and how to fix it. We're breaking down on this webinar right now. So that could be like an ad, right? So yeah, so it doesn't have to be in the form of questions, but yeah, I think you understand the concept. Okay. Let me see if there's any other questions. Can you get too raw for people? Of course you can. Yep. So parenting as an example, yelling is what they do, but how they feel right after is angry feeling they want to get away from. Talking to that pain and discomfort is too personal, or is it the connection that will get them to reach out? So you're operating with a lot of assumption. Do you know for a fact that talking about anger in your content is too painful? What's telling you that? If they told you that, or are you just not seeing results? So you're assuming that. Because here's what I found out is when you are truly talking about the experience or the unwanted experience that someone is going through and they don't want anymore, and you talk about it in the right way, they feel heard, they feel validated, they don't move away from it. And if they do, then they're not even the right people in the first place, because you want to attract people that go, I have the problem and I want it fixed. I'm telling you right now, if you are accurate and you're specific, the people that have the problem and want it fixed, they don't run away. They run to you because they go, this person gets it. I want this fixed. So yes, there might be people, to your point, there might be people that go like, okay, that anger and stuff it's just too much and they're not ready for it yet. So they will leave. And that's fine. Great messaging attracts the right, ready people and pushes away the people that are not right, that are not ready. So that could be okay also. All right. Okay. Tiffany's saying you bought a digital marketing course to learn your new skill and make extra money for your family. But when it's time to write the Instagram caption, you freeze. Maybe. Yeah. So this is it's too much. Like we don't even need to put the whole, you bought a digital marketing course. And that's already generalized. A digital marketing course is too generalized. To learn a new skill and make extra, we don't need any of that. Like what are they actually doing? They can't write Instagram captions. That's the thing. So it'd be like something as simple as, no matter how many frameworks you have, teachings you have, processes you have to create really great content, you freeze every time you come to putting something on Instagram. something along those lines. That's all you need. You don't want to put too much stuff in there. And then the last sentence, maybe you post more and more and more with disappointing results. That's a totally separate problem. So do not combine problems because I think you have like 3 of them in there. So the first problem that you have is you bought a course and you're not getting the results you want. That's number 1. Number 2 is you can't write Instagram captions, you freeze. That's the second problem. The third problem is no matter how much you post, your content's not getting results. So there's 3 problems in there. You want to separate those out. So these are each its own problem. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. I think that's everything.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.